Okay, everyone, if you can see, we will start the session now because we're a bit late. Okay, they are continuing. Okay. Hello. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Those that connect online and those that are here on site with us. Thank you for joining us for this workshop on the potential of a 5G ecosystem in Luxembourg. This workshop has been organized with funding from the European Union via the Structural Reform Support Program and in cooperation with the European Commission's DG Reform. And before we start this session, we would like to actually give the floor to Casper Richter, the Head of Sustainable Growth and Business Environment Unit in DG Reform, that will provide an overview of the project that we've conducted during these past months, and also the work that is done by DG Reform to support reforms in member states through the technical support instruments. So, Casper, thank you for being here. We give you the floor now.
Many thanks, Julia. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here together with my colleague Alistair McGeever. When I say here, unfortunately, it means Brussels, not Luxembourg, online. We are from the Director General Reform of the European Commission. We're really happy to be joining this workshop on the potential of a 5G ecosystem in Luxembourg. Now, what does DG Reform do? It actually works with member states to support them in designing and implementing reforms. Previously, in the multi-annual framework up to 2020, it was the Structural Reform Support Program. Now, in the new one from 21-27 is the Technical Support Instrument. And the reason why we are here, as Julia said, is that as part of our program under the Structural Reform Support Program, we have been lucky to be supporting a project on the contribution to a coherent digital infrastructure strategy in Luxembourg, jointly with the Department of Media, Telecommunications and Digital Policy. And so my very first word really goes to Eric Creer and his team. A big thanks to you for involving us in this excellent project, for collaborating with DG Reform. I would also really thank everis, NTTdata, as well their partners inCITES Consulting and LIST for sharing the expertise for this project. Their knowledge, commitment and professionalism have really been hugely welcome. You will have heard perhaps already during the course of this high-level conference from Commission colleagues that 5G is really a truly important priority for the European Commission. Connectivity is the most fundamental building block of the digital transformation. It is what enables data to flow, people to collaborate wherever they are, and to connect more objects to the internet, transforming manufacturing, mobility, logistics, energy, and so on. So this is why the European Commission supports strongly the fast rollout of 5G networks to all regions and households. Just to give you one example, it does so through the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is the centerpiece of Europe's recovery plan, which has as its flagship Connect, the ambition to ensure access to rapid broadband services of citizens and businesses in Europe. Now, we know that in Luxembourg in particular, this challenge is being taken very seriously and addressed squarely, which of course we saw yesterday again by the presentation of Prime Minister Bettel of Luxembourg's ultra-high-speed broadband strategy 21-25. Now, with the commitment and leadership from the Department of Media, Telecommunications and Digital Policy, our project on the 5G ecosystem makes a contribution to this agenda, in particular through support on elaborating a strategic roadmap for developing 5G ecosystem, upskilling and awareness raising, the production of a digital infrastructure map, and last but not least, the exchange of good practices of the kind that we are doing today in today's workshop. So through this support, we hope to do our bit to promote Luxembourg as a data-based economy, as it lately reaffirmed, not only through the presentation of the ultra-high-speed broadband strategy, but also in Luxembourg's recovery and resilience plan. I look forward to fruitful discussions today. Thank you. Back to you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Casper, for this introduction and this overview of what DG Reform is doing. Indeed, as Casper was saying, this project that we've been doing for the past months had one of the objectives of this project was actually to contribute to the development of the main objective was to contribute to the development of the national 5G ecosystem. And what we are going to do today actually is to have a very participative session, taking advantage of having you all here in the room, so that we can all discuss how this potential 5G ecosystem in Luxembourg would look like. To this end, we will actually start the session with the presentation of two very good examples of what other countries or even cities are doing and their lessons learned. We will continue with the panel discussion with our two experts, in which you are all invited to participate and to ask them questions on the use cases that they will present, on the examples they will present, through the Q&A functionality in event. And for those that are here in the room, we invite you to raise your hand and ask your questions directly, or just your comments or thoughts. And after this panel discussion and taking advantage of this food for thought that we will have, we will run a quick brainstorming to already think ahead of what are the main elements to be taken into account when developing a 5G ecosystem for Luxembourg. We can go to the next slide. So, Ioannis, further do.
Yes, thank you. The first speaker is Ms. Dimitra Simeonidou. Dimitra is a full professor at the University of Bristol, co-director of the Bristol Digital Futures Institute, director of Smart Internet Lab, CTO of Smart City Project Bristol is Open, leader of 5G urban pilots, fellow of IEEE, fellow for Royal Academy of Engineering, and I'm sure that I forgot some of the activities of Dimitra, and a good colleague, if I may. So, Dimitra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So I come from the University of Bristol in Bristol, UK, of course, and my team has been leading the 5G testbed and pilots activity in the city region for quite some time now. We were involved with the UK 5G testbed and trials program back in 2017, and we have been in quite a journey, actually developing 5G capability in my city and my region, and actually engaging with a number of sectors and helping them, first of all, to create knowledge and skills around 5G technology, and secondly, advising them and demonstrating them how they can actually go through a digital transformation journey through the adoption of 5G within their sectors. Next slide, please. Okay, it's not appearing the whole slide here. I cannot see the whole slide, but I maybe use my local slides to describe it. So we have created since 2017 a number of testbeds, regional and beyond the region testbeds, which you see here at the moment. We are having an ecosystem with state-of-the-art 5G infrastructure, which actually spans from the University of Bristol campus to the center of the city, covering the center of the city, to Bristol Science Park, especially high-value manufacturing, connecting with the aerospace industry that we are having here. We have covered our motorways and our ports, and then we are also reaching our neighboring city, the city of Bath, and two locations in London, that's King's College London and the Digital Catapult. Now, our testbeds are mainly heterogeneous network infrastructures. You see here quite a lot of details in terms of backhaul for 60 gigahertz, 26 gigahertz millimeter wave. We have deployed LTE Advanced and 5G NR. We have actually access to packet core, both to non-standalone, and now the last 18 months, full standalone capability in terms of the packet core. So if we go to the next slide, please. So what you see here is actually, this is really the ecosystem of test sites that we are supporting from Bristol. And you see what I described before. You see these different testbeds in a relatively small region in the UK. I can say that probably we have created the larger ecosystem of 5G tests and trials platforms here at Bristol. And you can see our campus network and then our smart city 5G network, the Science Park, the Roman Baths, and the Avonmouth Port at Bristol. And then through a capability, which is an orchestration exchange capability, we can actually connect to London, and we can connect beyond London, as I'm going to show in my next slide. Now, our journey has been a technology journey, but at the same time, actually quite a lot of our focus is how we can connect with vertical sectors and how we can actually bring the use cases into the 5G, into our 5G story, and actually drive innovation, technological innovation through that engagement with use cases. So in terms of use cases, we have done a lot on smart city region, a lot of trials. We have done a lot of trials on connected transport, on security, on assisted living, on smart tourism, digital culture media. That was something that we engaged the digital creative community very much, as we actually engaged a lot with music, sports, public safety, crowd control. Now, and we created some spectacular actually use cases around museums and visitors economy, around music festivals, and around, for instance, 360 immersive experiences using 5G infrastructure. Now, during the lockdown, of course, we couldn't engage very much the public. So the actual use cases that we have worked with, they concentrated in the ports and transport logistics and also manufacturing. And I'm going to talk specifically about those two use cases. So if we go to the next slide, please. Just to say that although our activity is concentrated around Bristol and the region, we also have built it through the UK program, a network of interconnected testbeds. And you can see here where we are actually doing collaborative 5G experimentation. And you can see here, for instance, the well-established links through physical infrastructure and software layers, especially orchestration layers that we have established from Bristol to London to Cambridge to Ipswich, where is the BT Labs, and then we are also reaching all the way to the north of England, and also, and you can see Lancaster here, and also to Scotland. This is quite a big story for us, because we have actually, instead of having isolated 5G testbeds, we are trying actually to create an environment where we can not only share only experience, but also resources through interconnected testbeds to scale up the environment of our experimentation. If we go to the next slide, please. Just I would like to go quickly through two recent projects, or current projects, actually two current projects that they are working. This is a 5G logistics project, again funded by the UK government, and this is the first open RAN testbed in the UK. So we are moving from vertically integrated 5G solutions into an open networking solution, starting with the RAN. And in this particular project, actually, we are involving our port and our transport infrastructure around the port. So we are addressing free port and free zone opportunities using 5G infrastructure. And also, we are looking at scenarios of traffic prioritization in terms of asset management, transport asset management through interconnected infrastructure. So what we are looking in terms of use cases is security. So security in the asset supply chain. We are looking traceability and tracking of goods with and across virtual boundaries. And also we are looking at the connection between private and public 5G networks. So in the example that you see here, the port and the free zone, they are actually having the establishment of private networks, and then in the motorway, they're connected with public 5G networks. So if we go to the next slide, please. You can see the infrastructure that we have established for this specific environment that we have created. And you can see the Bristol port is quite a big port in the UK. Bristol is known for its maritime activities since many, many years. So in this case, we have established a 5G private ORAN network with MEC and a standalone packet core. Then we are having the Gravity site, which is a free zone site, so on-site manufacturing associated with the operations of the port. And you can see here, this is another 5G private network, which actually is getting its packet core services from the port network. And in between, we have interconnection through the motorways and the smart junction that we have established there. So if you see the kind of services that we are offering through this infrastructure, is services to van and trucks, to local authorities, to the highways England. They are actually all partners in the project, and we are offering actually geolocation services and access to geolocation open databases. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is the next, this is a project where we are actually involved with high value manufacturing, so composite materials manufacturing, and we have established a 5G network in the manufacturing floor. I'm not going to say too much about this, but three are the use cases. The one is in factory and in transit asset tracking, similar technologies as I explained before, with the project associated with the port logistics. We have a use case where we are actually providing virtual 360 video training to the staff within the manufacturing plant. Then a very specific one around composite, where we are using the 5G infrastructure for closed loop manufacturing in liquid resin infusion. That's very particular to the manufacturing, to this specific manufacturing use case. So if we go to the next slide, please. And I would like to stop here to say that we spend now about 5 years on 4 years on actually creating testbeds for technology innovation and also for driving vertical sector transformation. And I can talk forever about these testbeds and what we have done. The reality is that at this point, we have to start actually questioning what is the value of testbeds going forward. Because if we see the testbeds that we have created, and I think they had incredible value on our 5G journey, actually these testbeds, they are getting dated very quickly, and they are quite confined in terms of space, scalability, and reach. So if we go to the next slide, please. We are making 2 interventions here at Bristol in terms of the future of testbeds. The one is we understand that most of the testbeds actually that we have used, of course, they help us in knowledge understanding and also creating skills around these testbeds. But actually, they are not 100% being utilized most of the time. So we are creating a nomadic node, a deployable network, or a network in a box, which we are using it as an innovation platform. So what you see here, it is actually an open run end-to-end network, which it can be transported and deployed in different environments. On its own, it can actually, we can use it, for instance, in a manufacturing plant, in a venue, in a city square, for demonstration, for deployment, for supporting innovation. So on its own, it's an end-to-end network. You can see here all the elements of an open run network, including actually an open standalone packet core, but it can also connect to the public network and to actually external data centers, offering dynamic backhaul services, which could be a dark fiber, could be millimeter wave. If you are looking at rural deployments, it could be satellite. So we have a full platform like this now, which we are offering it as going forward 5G innovation platform. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is going to be my last slide. The second intervention actually that we are making, and this is something that we are procuring at the moment and is going to be in service about mid next year, we are creating an advanced digital twin for future telecoms research. And why we are going towards digital twinning? Because as I explained before, physical testbeds, they have been useful and they are going to be useful, but they are really very limited in terms of scale, in terms of engagement, and also they can go out actually of state of the art very quickly, the way actually in the pace technology is evolving. But the very good about physical testbeds is actually they're giving us access to real data. So, and these real data are very important resource, but as I said before, in terms of scalability of this data, in order actually to generalize outputs, they're not always very reliable. So we are procuring and we're putting together this facility. First of all, it's going to give us access to our own data center, cloud and data platforms, and also opportunity to host hardware. And the first, if you like, function that we are going to support in this virtual production facility that you see there is the ability to scale up data, to host AI and machine learning, to train AI machine learning tools, to also design new security solutions, to be able to drive new protocol design, and generally to create scenarios. Now, through this virtual production facility, we are actually going through digital twinning capabilities to create digital models of infrastructures. And from these digital models of infrastructures to be able to provide live services to something which you don't usually see in digital twins. And this is an immersive experience facility. So in the testbeds, we have been actually co-creating and innovating with our users. We would like to retain this and make it even stronger. So digital twinning models are actually providing those services of future infrastructures and future scenarios to users within our immersive facility, where actually through their experience of consumption and acceptance of these services, we can real time iterate the scenarios that we are setting and therefore co-create infrastructure with our end users. So I do believe that going forward in terms of testbeds, in terms of driving from where now we are in 5G to beyond 5G and 6G, we really need to rethink testbeds and probably bring that combination of physical testbeds with digital twinning capabilities in order to be able to accelerate, but also to accelerate innovation, research and innovation, and actually create co-creation models with our users and our sectors. And I'm going to stop here. I have probably abused my time, but thank you very much.
That's fine, Dimitra. Thank you very much for this intervention. We remind you all that we will have a panel discussion later. We will first see Sergi's presentation, but if you have questions, please write them down so that afterwards in the panel discussion we can discuss with them. Ioannis, would you like to introduce Sergi?
Yes, Sergi is the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at ITUCAT. He's also the CTO of 5G Barcelona. He's evaluator in a number of projects and 5G pilots, coordinator in a number of projects, some of which we have collaborated together. Sergi, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ioannis. Good afternoon, everybody. Good, so I will start my presentation. It's going to be maybe a bit different from Dimitri's one, since it's not going to be done so much, I would say, technologically focused. But the idea myself is explaining you what the 5G Barcelona is. So if you can move forward, please. Okay, good, thank you. So it was created, I would say, around 4 years ago, more or less the same time that all the initiative started in Bristol together, because we share these things together with Dimitri too. And the idea was here to create an open, neutral citywide lab. We were aiming to identify how we were able to validate and adopt the 5G technologies and applications in real life environment. It was the leitmotif that we had on this challenge. To do so, what we decided to put is together the government, represented by the regional government, together with the city council. And then what we decided is to choose the 4 key research groups that were located in Barcelona, which were representing the evolution and the research behind 5G. Basically, those that were participating on the 5G programs of the European Commission, which is ITUCAT, NTTdata, ATOS Research, and UPC. Next one, please. Next, yeah. Okay, good. So the purpose that we had is basically not so much on well, initially maybe the focus was on validating pure technology, but then we realized that it also depends on the ecosystem that you have on the region of companies, whether you have companies that maybe are more devoted on sales or commercial efforts, or that rather you have headquarters of research companies with research labs. So it also drives the strategy that you could develop. So here I present you some figures that we have at the year of 2021 already. So far, for example, we have been thinking about 65 pilots, from which 35 have been deployed in Barcelona. When I say pilots, I say pilots that are built and then they are dismounted. So they don't stay in region as maybe we initially wanted, but we'll go this into the conclusions. Then what we have also created, which is very good, is what we call the labs initiative. So we had around 28 proposals, but we decided to move to 10. So we may increase this, but for example, we have labs with companies that together are used to validate technologies, but mostly use cases over these technologies. For example, we have the Things Lab together with Telefonica, that now is an IoT lab, but will be moved in the next month to the 5G infrastructure lab connected to the Telefonica infrastructure. So it means that whoever is doing tests there assures that what is working in the lab will work with a service operator in the real life. Then, for example, we have an open lab with Orange. What they did is that they gave frequency to the 5G Barcelona initiative, which is quite curious, but we were able to decide to run projects in a specific space spectrum that they gave to us for specific project proposals. Then we are building now, for example, another lab within a health ecosystem that is going to be devoted about video conference immersive solutions applied to 5G. So it's built in a startup and incubator that there are around 2,050 health companies and startups and hospitals. So it is to let them know the impact that 5G could have. Then we are running, for example, another, we are building, this is the one that we are really building in terms of physical infrastructure, connectivity, and so on, which is a rural 5G lab, which is the aim that this lab has is to allow the government to define which are the business models in order to have different operators sharing infrastructure and to allow the city to expand 5G not only in the big urban areas, but also in the rural areas, because there is the problem whether there will be a digital divide in the future and 5G will remain on the big cities and not in the small, I would say, towns. So this proposal is basically to focus on these things. Then, for example, in the railway, we have a metro infrastructure connected with 5G, which is a few kilometers, that can be used to identify what is the impact, I would say, below, in the tunnels, which is quite a big challenge too. This is done with Vodafone. And then we have a drone labs and also an holograms lab. Then another activity we develop are workshops. They are very useful to impact the society and to let people know what are the capabilities of 5G. And then is the participation on events, like for example today, on how many events we have been participating, explaining our activities. So next one, please. So one of the things that we realized is that we were doing most of these activities in Barcelona. So then we were in the situation that, okay, what we want to create is a region strategy, not a city strategy itself. So we decided to create what we call the Area 5G strategy, which in the end, what it aims is to bring a territorial strategy and ecosystems around 5G. So the idea here is to see how we are able to create this whole ecosystem in the region to be sure that everybody goes at the same speed whenever implementing, validating, or understanding what 5G is. So next slide, please. So here, for example, you can see how we have divided the region of Catalonia. So we have divided basically on the physical division that it already has, and we have created a hub in each one of these regions, and this hub is covering I would say, the verticals that are the strengths on this region. So we can see that we have different verticals, but the idea is that we have built these hubs together with the companies of the region, together with the local administrations, and with the support of the central administration. So we develop the same activities that I was telling you before, but now centered on the impact and evolution of the specific small regions that we are developing, rather to centralize everything in Barcelona. Next slide, please. So now I will pass through several slides. I mean, we will go pretty fast, but I want you to give an example of the type of pilots that we are developing here. So as I said before, we are not just building pure infrastructure. What we are doing is setting up pilots basically to validate business cases, to identify what are the innovations there and how we are able to engage different type of partners in the 5G ecosystem. So here, what you will see now in the several pilots I will pass by, that I will try to go a bit fast to not take that much time, but is that we are putting companies, which is the end user, the one that really thinks on how to monetize the use case that we are developing. So we have the 5G Barcelona partners that here we provide support. Then we have the operator, the service provider, and I would say that the consumers or will consume the service offered for them or for the users. So here, for example, with the Football Club Barcelona, Telefonica, and GSM have been working on immersive reality sports. Then also on augmented reality, again in sports, checking the data that you can get from the players itself by means of the sensors that you're putting, etc. So we can move next one, please. Another example here, as you can see with other big corporations. Again, here what we were identifying is how to enhance the tourism experience, which means that here what we did basically is by means through a car, whether if the taxis maybe can have intelligent windows that in the end are displaying augmented reality from the street that they're passing through. So here you can have things about advertising, about information of the city, etc. But as you say here, what we try to do, and this is our goal in 5G Barcelona, rather building the pilot itself is trying to put the value chain of all the actors that are needed for this type of pilots. Next one, please. I will try to go faster because I have many, because I wanted to give you the dimension. So we have been working also on Geological telestration software. Actually, it was one of the key presentations to Mobile World Congress ago, where there was this real-time support in a chirurgy from the stage. Next one, please. And here we had the hospital operator. Another one that we have been working on is on improving safety, on how we are able to interconnect cars with infrastructure of the city and with electrical bicycles that they were bringing sensors. So we deployed this in a street next to where the Mobile World Congress was celebrated in order to show the demonstration to the participants, people over there. Next one. Another one, for example, was with drones. We would also know that drones have an applicability in 5G too. And here what we're applying is in the case of emergency services. So here again, we put the infrastructure operator, people from the emergency, and we were trying to identify how we could accelerate I would say, the response time against any type of incident you have in the forest or wherever. Next one. Another one, for example, again, Industry 4.0. So the message that I am giving you is that one of the advantages I see in 5G is that it's not restricted to any vertical. So you can identify verticals in any different areas, and you have solutions there. And the complexity is that nowadays we have not yet developed the whole scenario of services that 5G has. And we have to try to maybe make the use case, but try to let them foresee what's going to be the future business model that could be applied when all the functionalities are already in place. So here we were working about real-time managing and controlling, I would say, big machinery. Next one, please. Another one was 5G for events. So basically what we did here is in a real-time concert, we put a 360 camera inside the stage together with a singer, and then the people were able to get in another area of the concert, inside the concert, with immersive content and having a real-time experience of what the singer is feeling when he's singing to the audience. It was quite exciting. I mean, people were, you could see that they were excited to see what's the feeling that the singer may have. So you realize about these different businesses that maybe concert managers can deploy in the future and in the end monetize and have these extra services that maybe now we are validating this concert itself, but it could be in the end at home that we are just having this experience. Next one. Another one is about emergencies. Here, what we did is with augmented reality, you see that the guy is bringing smart glasses. So the idea was to identify and to get some support, again, from the hospital, which is called Park Taulí. So we're working with a city council of a specific city. So again, another application. Next one. Then we are also applying this to elderly people. So we have projects in Barcelona and Catalonia dealing with elderly people, and we decided to see what would be the advantage to try to increase maybe the speeds, the latencies, or to add more sensors on these people to get much more information. Sometimes you could say that, yes, obviously you can do most of this with 4G, but the idea was to see at what time we're validating this business case, and we can see because we are playing with different opportunities. Next one. Here we are working also in another one about improving quality of life and how you could have a robot that is trying to analyze people behavior through AI in real time to try to respond or to accommodate to the people behavior or the people needs. So this is also in development with a company which is developing this type of technology in robots. Another one, please. I think I have a couple of more. Then we are working also on digital twins. Again, Dimitra put an example about the importance for the infrastructures. And when you are working with factories, there are different type of infrastructure of factories, and you cannot have a testbed for each one of type of factory. So it is how you can somehow generate a digital twin mechanism that could be extrapolated maybe to different scenarios onto different Industry 4.0 too. So here we're working with one of the tier ones providers about the industry, and it was very good too with Telefonica. Next one. Again, agri-food. I mean, what we realized is that the land is something that people are not just getting that much excited about working in the lands. So here we developed a system to assist new people about working on this and to be sure that the training curve is faster to facilitate the entrance of younger people to work in the fields and to become experts on the agri-food experience. Next one. Then with the Maritime, so we realized that the port has a problem about managing the ships when entering the pier. So here we did a digital twin solution that will be improved in a future project in order to really customize the size of the feet in the port to be sure that the same thing they see in the digital world is what's happening really in the port. And this is very important because they are huge boats, and 2 seconds of movement of one of these boats is something that you cannot stop. So they need a lot of accuracy that they don't have nowadays. Next one. Another one is about this type of machinery that bring packets. Most of the people, when they drive, it's crazy, but they look behind. So sometimes there are many crashes. So we developed a system with ultra wideband and using also use of 5G on how they could generate alarms when a crash situation was almost to happen. So it's also a warning system, I would say, to improve safety. Next one. Another one about safety in industrial ports. So we did this with other partners, now in the terminals manager. Another one, I think that's the last one, the next one. Okay, this was the last one. So good. So I'll reach here, and you have seen many use cases. So in the end, I wanted to share you with some lessons that we have learned. So first of all, we wanted to think about doing research together. That's why we put together research groups in the 5G Barcelona initiative. Then we realized that no one of the pilots deals with research. All of them deals with integration. So research is not needed, and they only deal with the state-of-the-art technology that they can find already implemented on the operator, because it's the business case they want to check to identify whether the return could be in a short or long term. So we decided to not develop any research activity on the pilots we do, which maybe is a different strategy from other regions. But as I said, it's a strategy that we followed. Then sponsorship decisions are key and difficult. Always it's very complex to identify how to sponsor the pilots, because there are many actors. You have to balance the investments of each one of them, and well, it's not easy. So I wanted to tell you that this experience is like, it's challenging to put them, but always there has to be a type of a small sponsor, public sponsor, to help them to do the launch and to put the seed to make the use case happen. Then another thing is about the fact that, for example, each lab needs or should be supported by a telecom operator. So everything we do is with the telecom operators, because in the end, as I said, we are using the infrastructure they have. It could be its infrastructure, which is an NSA. We don't have yet SA as in Bristol they have, but what we do is using the technology that they have already. Then, as I said, it's very difficult that the pilots remain, because they are very costly to maintain. So the idea is to focus the effort on a period of maybe 1 month, and everything happens there, and then we dismount, because it's not sustainable to keep on maintaining all these pilots. So the idea is that these pilots are used to take money decisions whether the business case could make sense for the companies to invest in or not. And then we have the workshops that are very much appreciated by the audience. They really love this activity that we do to engage them, to make design thinking activities with them, to think use cases. That's really appreciated. The 5G Barcelona is a very good instrument to generate and establish collaborations with people that you didn't know before, and partners that were not collaborating before either. And the main goal is basically to evolve in time, and the main value is becoming the boost for the deployments on business cases. And in the end, just to finish, is that the Area 5G project is becoming key for the development of the region, and we are very happy on that country. So thank you very much, and sorry, I also think I took a bit more time. Thanks.
Thank you, Sergi. That's fine. We will have a shorter Q&A probably, but this was a very interesting presentation and you gave us a lot of examples, I think, for our brainstorming session later, also Dimitra. Now we would open the floor for people to ask questions to our experts, also those that are participating online. You can ask your questions through the chat, and we will just read them for our speakers. Otherwise, we've also prepared some questions ourselves, as we were seeing were very interesting presentations. So, yes, first.
Okay, someone needs to start. So, hello, my name is Jean-Paul Cassel. I work for Postmax, so we operate the mobile network and Luxembourg. And now I saw that your testbed activity has grown since I think I saw some of you in the past conference. So what was for you the biggest challenge you encountered to expand your testbed activities and to make this a sustainable action? Vista?
Yeah, well, as I told you, we decided not to go for sustainability in terms of maintaining the different pilots or monthly tests that we were mounting, basically for economical reasons, which I think that it's different scenarios, Bristol, which they are building an infrastructure for long term.
I must say that from our side, our infrastructure is not sustainable as such. So we have actually a charging model, especially for big industry and corporation, but still we need public funding in order to sustain and expand our activity. So we have been heavily subsidized by the UK 5G program.
Let me add something. I mean, the running costs of 5G Barcelona are nowadays covered by the government, by the Mobile World Capital Barcelona, and NTTdata. So we are covering the running cost of operation. Then the pilots, they have a specific cost that they are covered by the partners participating.
I can also comment so my question is related to the private 5G part, obviously. So you mentioned private 5G specifically also on the Bristol side a couple of times, and I mean you have different ways to roll out the private 5G network. Of course, you can ask an operator to dedicate a complete network to you, which might be a very expensive scenario. Then you can obviously use a slice from the public network, or you can really roll out the private 5G network, which is also in a couple of countries in Europe already something which is quite booming and accelerating for the moment. And I just checked a little bit, I mean, market leading is a little bit for the moment Germany. We have seen this morning the example of the airport of Köln-Bonn rolling out the private 5G network. I checked a little bit what the situation in the UK is, and if my figures are right, we have about 30 projects where 10 of them are using private enterprise spectrum. That's a little bit what I'm talking about here. In Spain, I have no information, and all the information I have is like we have 20 pilots going on, but it's more or less Telefonica who dedicates them all. Is this the situation that you see, and how would you see that the hype of private 5G networks, so reserved spectrum, based on the model of CBRS in the US, is accelerating digital transformation inside Europe, specifically for 5G projects?
If you were comment, I couldn't understand. I mean, the sound was not very good, but you were making reference about the 5G, the private 5G. And here I have to tell you that in Spain, the situation is very bad. I mean, the government didn't open the 3.5, so it's only belonging to operators. So any 5G, private 5G trial or test is done together with one of the 3 or 4 main operators. Then they are thinking on opening now the 26 gigahertz. So here they expect to give 100 megahertz bandwidth that will be used for 5G private networks. Although it's not yet clear what are going to be the rules, what schema will they do, whether it's like the US or not. There is lots of definition. And in the 700 spectrum, they have also given everything to the telecom operator. So just to put you an example, we have created at NTTdata a spin-off on 5G private networks, even knowing that in Spain this business is limited, but we foresee this as a trending thing happening around the world in Europe, and at some point it will become something I would say much more normal.
That's interesting because it's a little bit also the situation that we are facing currently in Luxembourg. Obviously, it's interesting in the UK, there is a clear role already defined. There is the spectrum 3.8 to 4.2 gigahertz reserved for the enterprise for private 5G networks. So it will be very exciting to see that there are 10 pilots going on. It's less than in Germany. But how this is seen in the UK.
So indeed, in the UK, we have there is an access in this 3.8 to 4.2 spectrum for private networks or for shared spectrum kind of applications. I was looking a study this morning, which actually was saying that by 2025, 76% of all manufacturing plants, they are going to actually deploy a private network one way or the other. That is very high number. It is quite questionable. Now, the market share in terms of private networks is an interesting proposition, because what I see is happening is private networks increasingly are being provided by public operators. So look, for instance, a manufacturing site or a port site, the actual site may have their own cellular infrastructure, but actually they are receiving packet services and also access to spectrum through a public network operator. Now, this is not exactly the model that we revisit when we were start thinking, about private networks changing completely business models. So this is an interesting evolution of models that we have to see how they are going to work out. And I think a very big consideration here is that interoperation between public and private networks, how is going to be actually facilitated by regulation, including spectrum, but not only spectrum.
Thanks for the insights. So very welcome.
Let me add that in Spain, you can make a specific request to the government to use the band of 3.8 for the 2 only for testing purposes. So it means that this band can be used for testing, for example, 5G private networks, but then you cannot go ahead unless you get a spectrum from an operator that they don't give a spectrum to do so.
That's also interesting because obviously with that you can already roll out pilots and then you can see afterwards how you continue. Now the point is simply that if we try to protect that spectrum for the operators, then the risk is that we compare to other countries then falling behind, because I mean for the moment we see that the acceleration, specifically what we see in Germany, Belgium now opened up or whatever, so you have an administrative fee of 3,000 euros to get private spectrum for the enterprise and so on, and that will drive a lot of projects, and obviously that is like driving then the industry in Europe. That's the
May I add a comment that can maybe not be correct? It depends on how strong are the lobbies in your region. So it's clear, this is the answer. So if the lobby does not want this to be open, then it's not open. It's personal opinion. No, I don't put my institution behind it.
Yes.
Let's say that private networks is a very important space to support them, especially for new entrants into the market and tier 2 or tier 3 vendors. it is very difficult for the smaller vendors to find a place at the moment within big operators' infrastructure. And private network seems to be the market opportunity for them, which of course, by expanding to this market opportunity, they could be making good commercial propositions in the future for public networks as well. So it is something that needs to be supported, especially as part also of the discussion for how we grow and supply chain diversification in our telco infrastructure.
Yeah, and in the end, according to what Dimitri said, one of the things that we are facing is that, for example, since all the 3.5 spectrum has been given to 3 operators, and I would say revenues interest when they do operations is really big. What does it mean? It means that they are not interested to go to rural areas. And then you are a spectrum which belongs to them that cannot be used, and maybe other small operators that are the ones providing services there could be deploying new services and becoming innovative, as Dimitra says, but then one thing is blocking the other. And then there is this big dilemma, I would say.
And the difference is basically that if we are talking about private 5G networks, it means like that the enterprise themselves becomes the operator. And that's a huge shift. It means like not small operators can enter the market, but it just means like they can run, like they run today Wi-Fi, the 5G network completely on their own. It's not somebody else who is providing that for them, providing the spectrum. They have to request the spectrum on their own. And then one of the reasons, for instance, for Köln-Bonn Airport, the case that we had this morning is that the CIO told me, look, we did this because we don't want somebody else on the airport to reduce the spectrum. So we want to be in control of our future, of all the different business cases that are coming up. And that is currently a big driver. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if we have more questions. We also reminded online participants that you are also allowed to ask questions using the chat. We know that you cannot unmute yourselves, but at least you can ask questions through the chat. Feel free to do so. Otherwise, we will go ahead and ask questions ourselves.
May I ask you if you are willing, or if you have already had some collaborations with ecosystems in different countries, some agreements or MOUs between ecosystems in different countries, and how this works?
I would say, limited.
No, go ahead, Sergio.
But I would say that this collaboration mostly happens through the European research projects that we have, and we are partners in several of them. However, I have to say that also depending on the personal relationships, for example, with Dimitra, we have a strong collaboration that sometimes goes beyond from these, I would say, EU programs. But in the end, also whenever you want to make this engagement with other regions, it's important to have programs at the national level so that can cover the expenses, because in this you are allocating researchers, you are allocating infrastructure, and universities or research centers, it's not easy to cover for themselves.
Yeah, I agree with Sergio. European projects in terms of R&D, at least up to now, has been the place to go for the UK, and hopefully in the future as well. Now in the UK, obviously you have seen that we have started looking at bilateral collaborations with likely minded regions. So there is quite a lot of discussion with US. We are already linking on pilots and experimentation with US, and regions like Australia and South Korea and Japan. And we actually just about to launch also an R&D project with India, especially around 5G Open RAN and private networks, looking at rural scenarios and technology for rural deployments. So there are things that are happening. And I suppose it's at the moment it's very geopolitical, the kind of decisions that are happening, rather than technological.
Okay, we have a question on the chat from Goran Joki, who says, considering that Barcelona is the right place to speak about football use case for 5G, I found it very interesting. Could you maybe add some more information on the end user experience? What was the success on this use case? And in particular,
Well, in terms of the pilots we run, I'll tell you that well, luckily they are all successful. But what you cannot be always successful is about the business model that is created afterwards. Understanding that in the end, even though I said that we are using not research but a state of the art, sometimes you are using a state of the art ad hoc infrastructure that cannot be easily found around the city. So one of the fears that sometimes I have, and I don't know if Dimitra will share this with me, is that it's like the momentum of 5G is like going too fast when we don't yet have the infrastructure in place with all the capabilities. And I might have the assumption that even though in the research field we'll know things, we can make very nice research pilots, when you go to industry, you only find so far like bandwidth, which is like the MTV, I mean, one of the standards that they have, and the slicing is not properly yet provided, the ultra low latency not yet either. What I mean is like in the operation, right, in the city-wide area. Even though you have this in specific locations where you make the pilot, it's not distributed all around, which means that, okay, the use case is very nice, it works, it might have business, but then the question is, okay, and when the telecom operators will have this service ready, operational in the whole region, because in the end, if I sell a business, I need to sell this business across. And here is the big, I would say, question that we are still addressing. Thanks.
Yes, I mean, we had the same experience, Sergi, that actually pilots, they offer capabilities, especially around the low latency side, that actually commercial networks, they don't offer yet. And it's going to be some time until we get real low latency KPIs out of our networks. And that is a barrier in terms of developing services that actually they can be commercial. Or on the other side, if actually we are looking at local services, place-based, then again, we go back to the private network discussion. And is it actually something, these advanced services that they're locally provided, if that actually private networking could offer in advance of what public operators they could offer in terms of KPIs. But I agree, actually, the business case is very, very difficult to implement.
Okay. Are there any other questions here in the room? Otherwise, we'll go back to the chat. We have a question from Futoshi Sasaki. The question says, my understanding is that there is no specific business model in 5G SA, like full MVNO in 4G, etc. So I doubt how we can create the business opportunities between public and private 5G network, collaborating with customers' high demand to leverage 5G potential, such as URLLC and MMMTC. I would ask speakers, how do you think we can leap over these obstacles?
Can I take this first, Sergi, to see if I actually understand this? So as I mentioned before, there are two ways that we are looking at these private-public network models. The one is that actually the private network is a fully fledged 5G network. So the private network is hosting a 5G core itself. And in that case, then the public network is for offering external services only. So that is quite a simple example, or I don't know, a complex example for the private network, but a simple example in terms of actual interoperability with public networks. Now, where the complication comes is that if the private network actually is asking packet core services from the public network, in that case, actually, because of not having at the moment full implementation of 5GSA, then it's very difficult to supply slices for support of private networking, where actually private networks can innovate on top. And I think this is what the barrier on that interworking between private and public networks is existing at the moment. Now, in our case, at Bristol in the UK, we have done quite a lot of actual pilots across private and public networks. The most efficient ones, they're always been when the private network is hosting a packet core itself. And this was one of the examples that I have given you when I was discussing, for instance, the pilot that we are running in the Bristol port and across the port and the motorways. I hope that makes sense. I hope so.
I agree with you, Dimitri, so I think nothing else to say.
Okay, thank you very much to you both. If we don't have further questions, we will move now to the brainstorming exercise that we were planning to do at the end of the session. For it, we will ask to all of you to take your devices, either laptops or mobile phones, and those of you that are online as well, you can use these apps. Go to www.menti.com and use the code 50895676. I think that we will put it as well in the chat, so that if you have any doubt, you can use it. Yeah, it's on the top, and we will put it in the chat as well, so you can see it here in the presentation.
Julia, should we go there too or not?
If you want to participate, Sergi and Dimitra, you can also participate. These are very specific questions to Luxembourg now, but you are welcome as well to give your opinion.
Okay, no, good. Thanks for clarification.
Thank you. Okay, so if you are all already inside, if you have any questions, you can tell us on the chat as well. Our colleague Regina will be checking the chat. We'll go to the first question. So the first question, it's a very basic one. Do you think that a 5G ecosystem is required in Luxembourg? Okay, so far we're on the right path to have this session. We see that there are 6 people answering, and all of them so far answered yes. So good. Okay, we'll move to the next question now. There's still people contributing. So we'll wait 1 more minute. Okay, next question, a bit more concrete. So who should be part of this ecosystem in your opinion? Here it's multiple choice, but if you see that there's any stakeholder or actor that we have not mentioned here, you can click on others, and please let us know who did we forget on the chat, or just telling us. Okay, so we're seeing so far that operators is the most common answer, government as well, and then we have regulators, industries, SMEs, and to a lesser extent vendors and cloud providers. But we see that no one clicked on others, so we understand that we did not forget anyone, and these are the stakeholders that should be part of this ecosystem. So thank you. Okay, let's move to the next question. Now let's think about the ecosystem and what it should look like. So how should the ecosystem look like? Here we provide different answers. It's multiple choice, so you can select more than one, but should it be an ecosystem to exchange ideas, as an exchange ideas platform, a regulatory sandbox, a promoter of regulatory and standardization positions, an investment pool, a test bed, or again other? And here, if you see anything missing, please feel free to let us know through the chat or also here in the room. Okay, we see that everyone that was participating in the brainstorming answered, and what we see here is that most of you believe that it should be an exchange ideas platform. Secondly, you mentioned that it should act as a test bed. And the third most common is regulatory sandbox. Please, if any of you want to comment on your answers, feel free to do so. We are asking the questions through this tool because it's easier, but we also encourage contributions. So if you want to further elaborate on your answer, feel free to do so either through the chat, as I was seeing our colleague is checking it, or just by raising your hand. Okay. Next one. Now we don't give you the answers. We're expecting you to give us the answers. So get ready to type. What do you expect to be the main benefits of a 5G ecosystem in Luxembourg? We're waiting for your answers here. We will give you more time because it's a more complicated question, probably as we are not providing the answers. Okay, first answer is digital transformation. Second, future-proof concept. Okay. Ability to become a technological hub and not lag behind. Neutral infrastructure, get ahead, start improving competitivity. No, we said we would give more time because it's in the meantime, I see Sergi is still here. So does any of these answers surprise you, or is it aligned with what you are seeing that are the main benefits of your examples?
Well, I think that they are fully aligned on the topics that we are discussing altogether.
Okay.
So, but the important thing when you run or you create this ecosystem is the challenge is to create the ecosystem.
Okay.
Itself.
Yeah, I think that we don't have this question in itself, but we should ask it. We should ask it now as a follow-up of this question. So I'm going to ask it without using Mentimeter. Thank you, Sergi. So
Welcome.
what do you think? And you can type it on the chat, and here please feel free to raise your hand and say it. What do you think that are, or if you are shy and do not want to raise your hand, you can just write it here on the screen because it will appear anyhow in the screen. What are the main challenges to create this 5G ecosystem in Luxembourg? If you are typing on Mentimeter and you don't see it here, let us know because it might be in the next slide. So we will. To get started, that's a challenge indeed. And what are the challenges to get started here in Luxembourg, as you see?
Getting the right people around the table.
Okay, so getting the right people on the table. Anyone else?
Maybe
Yes.
similar to what you had as a possibility in the question before, creating some kind of exchange platform for ideas.
Okay.
As in the table in the sentence.
Okay. So this would be a challenge as well to create this platform, or would this be a solution for it?
Creating the platform would be a solution if the people act.
Okay. We see that so far the biggest challenge you see is getting the people to act. Any other challenge that maybe the people online sees or that would like to act? No, Sergi, can we ask what were the main challenges in your case, if you had to summarize them?
The main challenge was that first, we didn't want to have an industrial bias. So we decided to not put in industry in the core team of the 5G Bristol initiative. Then the problem we had is on agreeing because we have competitors in terms of research centers. You have to put them in the table and to make them agree and to work together. This was a second challenge. Also, the fact that when you are putting the same table, the region government and the city council government, they might have different interests. So the big challenge here was on defining the main objectives and the agreements on which are the common goals that we will work together and we will follow up to be sure that the ecosystem, I mean, when I say the ecosystem is the group is sustainable to create a global ecosystem in the region.
Okay, thank you, Sergi. And Dimitri, in your case, what were the main challenges that you faced?
I mean, quite similar to Sergi, because we decided to be vendor agnostic. So we wanted to create a multi-vendor environment to support our 5G vision, if you like. And that way to create an environment where we can actually bring new companies, support the innovation sector from a technology point of view through the test beds. And that has not been an easy thing to achieve. Because if you are looking, for instance, especially at the beginning, 5G vendors, they wanted exclusivity in this kind of R&D and pilot activities. Things are becoming better and the ecosystem is opening up. So that has been a challenge for us.
All right. Thank you. I don't know if maybe I have some remarks to that. Also maybe from some point of perspective. So first of all, I think if we say 5G ecosystem, I rather would see this as an exchange platform, so that you can bring maybe different actors together, so that they can build some applications or services that may be difficult for them to do by their own. At this stage of 5G deployment, I see this as let's say, a test bed or something. I see it more in another way, and then I think it would be really important that people that participate, that you agree on the objectives that you want to achieve in a certain time, and that everyone can find his benefits in these objectives. And then, if people then subscribe to these objectives, I think then we will move forward. But that's one that you find some objectives where the different participants can also find their value in. Okay.
Yeah. Then another thing you want me to add, as you can see, most of the members we have on the 5G Barcelona initiative, they are public. So we decided to create this as an initiative rather as an official association. So we don't have VAT number, because in the end, having a VAT number, it means that you need to have a new company, and then this new company, if he gets money to develop the pilot or whatever, has to create open tenders because it's public I mean, they have to subcontract to public sector, and it was so much complexity that we decided to make an initiative. And whenever we have identified which is the task of each one, and when there is a sponsor from the client sponsoring the pilot, they charge to each one of the members whatever is needed, or we manage this way the distributions. And then I would say the one which is taking the leadership is the Mobile Capital, because they are also putting money from the pocket. And then we are the CTO, because we are the others investing too.
Okay, yes.
Can I ask then who is paying for the administration of this? Because you have, I mean, you have your own costs, you have your mandate, you have your time. Who is paying for that?
As I was telling you, the running costs are covered by Mobile Capital Barcelona, by A2CAT, and by the government of Catalonia. So we all together cover different costs, and we are responsible for them. For example, when we decided to create a website, so then this was paid by Mobile Capital. Then when we other activities, we cover this cost. So we do workshops that we carry on the workshops with our employees. So we manage this thing in a, I would say that we are very happy after 4 years, we are still able to sit all together in the table, and this is a big challenge already. I love, but I say that always it's complex when you put competitors in the same table in terms of research, even though we are colleagues. But then also we have to balance very well the links that we have with operators, because we want to be sure that no one says that this organization is working for this operator, for this other industry, or whoever. We are trying to split the game and the resources across the actors that we have.
Okay, thank you. And just the last question for all participants is in this case the organization you represent planning to deploy private 5G network as part of an ecosystem? No? So far?
That's only 2 answers, right?
Yeah, only 2 answers. So. We see that there are comments on the chat. Futoshi said maybe MNOs are too few to maintain and cultivate various industrial potentials for 5G SA. Just a comment for everyone we're guessing. Okay, so yes,
one last question.
go on.
Sergi and Dimitra, what was the conclusion, the feedback from the industry after demonstrating all these use cases and benefits of 5G? Are they finally interested to, or if they are already investing in 5G?
Happy with experience. I mean, they not only have seen the pilot itself, but the good thing is that all the employees or people that they have engaged have been able to see the opportunities or the new business cases that could be emerged by means of deploying these new type of technologies.
Yes, same experience on our side, and I must say that quite a few of the industries that we have actually installed pilot 5G networks, they are taking them over. Like, for instance, the network in the ports. The Avonmouth port is actually adopting now this network, and they're going to make it for commercial and operational use, and also on the manufacturing side as well. So there is a big buy-in and a big interest. Very close relationships have been cultivated out of these programs.
Okay, I think that we're a bit ahead of time. Sorry, we even stayed over time. Sorry. Thank you to Dimitra and to Sergi for all your contributions today, for your two interventions. Indeed, very, very interesting examples. You gave us food for thought for this brainstorming. So thank you very much. And thanks as well to all the participants here on site and online for your contributions as well to these workshops.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Real pleasure to collaborate and contribute to Luxembourg's idea.
Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye.